love it with some passion. Rubber band and the money that keeps stacking. Got a honey who come with elite fashion. She too fine, I tell her that thing magic. You ain't a hustler, you broke, well that seems tragic. Gotta catch in the field like deep passes. I tell her plug if it's sticky, then please bag it. I need the best cause I grew up beneath madness. Need a Matt Burgundy Mercy. Jewelry so heavy it might hurt me. Smoking extra kill, that extra seal. Whoa, Buffalo money need extra bills. Till I'm eating so much I got a breakfast deal I put.
And there it is. It's your boy Jay Spence the King, and I got my man Steros for the girls, and I gotta get a nickname for Antwan. I don't know. I mean, I get it. He the man. He the professional one out the crew. But I gotta get a nickname for my man Antwan. But it's your boy Jay Spence the King, Steros for the girls, and Mr. Antwan Staley, and we are here. It is the chop up on Wednesday nights during the off season. What's going on, fellas? What's up with you, Steros?
Hey man, I'm good over here, ready to get in this thing, dude. This is like my favorite day of the week, to be honest, man. Doing a chop up with y'all is muy bueno for me.
Yeah, it'd be like that. I'd be obviously I love my show. I love the code of conduct, but I enjoy talking to y'all. It's like a different vibe, and I get to really just like, really. You drink, so that's why you wild out. You know what I mean? But no, what's up with you, Antwan? I know you just getting back from the combine, so I know you got a lot to talk about.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great time of the year, free agency in the NFL. I'm actually watching college basketball, like trying to pay attention to y'all and talking to y'all at the same time. So it's one of the best to me. I think it's the best time of the year with free agency, college basketball, March Madness, the NBA kind of in the home stretch too, and then you got baseball about to start up too. So it's really a fun time in sports.
The multitasking Antwan Staley. Yeah. Yo, let's start right where it's at. You already know where I was going to start. Forget the combine for a second. The Jets and this quarterback situation, man, they talking about Aaron Rodgers is really probably going to happen now. And it looks like it. It's a lot of quarterback movement. We're going to get to, obviously, we're going to talk about Lamar. We're going to talk about Daniel Jones. But I want to start with this Aaron Rodgers conversation, man. Like, is this happening or what? Like, I'm hearing conflicting things depending on who you're listening to.
I mean, I don't know. It's up to him. That's basically what it is. I mean, they went to the Malibu to meet with him in California. The Jets brass, like Joe Douglas, the general manager, Robert Saleh, owner Woody Johnson. I mean, they still don't have an answer from him. He still has to think about it. So he's still considering retirement. I don't see that necessarily happening. And really, you look at the situations at quarterback. I mean, I don't know what outside the Raiders. I don't know what other fits he might have as far as like a team. So it's either going back to the Packers, which they already pretty much gave him permission to talk to the Jets, or go back to the Packers. That's kind of the only two scenarios that I see. And it seems like the Packers are ready to turn the corner on, and to give the reins to Jordan Love. So, I mean, it's really up to him and what he wants to do. I mean, I get it because he's been in Green Bay for his entire career, but he has to think about it. But if you're the Jets, you really need to answer, I think, before, the tampering period on Monday, because otherwise, then you kind of need to turn your attention elsewhere to other options that are available.
Can I say how proud of the Green Bay Packers I am, though? Like, because when you look at it from a certain way, they went through this with Brett Favre, and it was almost like Brett Favre had them handcuffed. Like, he had to get his way when he wanted to retire, then he wanted to unretire. He wanted to they had him handcuffed. Then for the past few years, it almost seems like Aaron Rodgers has been going through this dramatic situation as well. Not necessarily retirement, but figuring out if he wants to be there, if he wants to do, And now the Packers is like, you know what? I'm tired of your games, man. Just go ahead. We breaking up. You can go see other people. You can go ahead and go on some dates.
Well, they hadn't.
I'm cool with it.
Yeah, no, they just kind of like, yeah, if you want to talk to them, you can, but nobody's. It seems like part of them is like, we don't necessarily want to upset the fan base by saying like we're just going to get rid of him. So we're hoping that he does it for us. But at the same, I think in their perspective, like they either way, but I think they're kind of exhausted by the whole thing because he's a diva in a way. I mean, we talked about him retire. It was retirement too, because remember he was flirting with being the host of Jeopardy at one point in time. So,
yeah.
it is. exhausting, at least for their perspective. And I totally get it. I mean, in you're the Jets, you have to wonder, like, okay, how many years of Aaron Rodgers are you going to get? Is it just for 1 year? Because you're probably going to be in the same situation once again next year, where he's sitting there flirting with retirement at age 40, about to be 41 soon. And do you really want to go through that? If you win a Super Bowl, then yeah, but it's no, guarantee that you're going to do that, considering Aaron Rodgers has only been to one of those early in his career.
Yeah,
then,
and go ahead. That's my whole problem with the whole thing. If you're a Jets fan, like, I wouldn't want that. You're going to be giving up assets to get Aaron Rodgers for a short-term fix, and you don't know what you're going to have to give up, and you don't know if he's going to want to play after this season. I mean, I just, I would pass on him. I really don't understand the infatuation with Aaron Rodgers. Great player, but, it'd be one thing if he was 32, 33, right? But he's 39 years old, and what do you got to give up to get him? So, I mean, I know you. What is your idea of a compensation package to get Aaron Rodgers?
Probably at this point, because they would you hope the Packers would eat some money. So because he's expected to make upwards to like $59 million next year. So you hope that they could probably eat a lot of that money, and then the compensation might be a little bit lower, whereas like a second or a third round pick maybe, just because they already have a plan in place for him. So yeah, I don't think it'll be a first round pick, although it could be. But I don't think it'll be like 2 first round picks like it would be like if you try to go out Lamar Jackson. Like I know I saw a question there talked about how would he mess around with the Leon. But I mean, that's a good question because it's a situation where the Packers, he didn't necessarily go to the off-season program and gel with the chemistry of the young receivers, and you kind of saw that was kind of a bit of a detriment to the Packers because they didn't get their chemistry going until later on in the season, and I definitely think that hurt them, and part of the reason why they didn't make the playoffs last year, although they had an opportunity to do so at the last game of the season.
I think for me, when I think about this, the way this whole thing is playing out is just obviously I know Sterling is like, I don't get the infatuation. I get the infatuation with Aaron Rodgers. I mean, it's Aaron Rodgers, but what I don't get is basically what you just talked about, Antwan. It's like you're going to give up these assets, you're going to give up second round or whatever it is. If that's me, like I'm looking at a second round draft pick as a very good player that you can draft, whose contract you have control over for 5 years, depending on whatever contract you give him. And, you're just going to get more production. I don't see Aaron Rodgers playing at a high level for 5 more years.
Well, no, but you have to look at it from the perspective of the coaching staff in general. Like, their jobs are on the line. Like, remember, like, the Jets, like, they were 7-4 at one point in time. Like, they had an opportunity to make the playoffs. I mean, they were, not that I thought anybody thought they were going to win the division, but, after they beat the Bills, like, people were getting excited, like, oh, yeah, this is the year they're going to break that long playoff drought. And it didn't happen. They lost 6 straight to end the year. So now you come into a year, go from a year where you didn't have any expectations to a year where you better make the playoffs. Or, I mean, the coaching staff, they understand what it is. Like, so they feel the pressure. Joe Douglas, the general manager, feels the pressure, and they know they need to get a veteran quarterback. And, what way to do that, especially when you end up getting Nathaniel Hackett away from Denver after he was fired, and then he ended up working with Aaron Rodgers. So you're kind of connecting the dots that way. So what better way to, try to solve your veteran quarterback situation than to go out and get, Aaron Rodgers. Although I agree with you. I mean, I think it's a short-term fix. It's nothing long-term. I mean, you better win us this year because you don't know necessarily, what the may hold there. And to be quite frank, you might not even be the best team in your division still, but, if you have an opportunity to make the playoffs, then, you always have a shot to possibly get into the Super Bowl.
Yeah, man, you can't sacrifice your future, man. Now, if they go for any quarterback, it should be Lamar Jackson. And that's not even – I mean, I don't even know why people are having other conversations about other quarterbacks. Like, if you're the Jets, get something – I would give up 2 first-round picks for Lamar Jackson if I'm the Jets.
Yeah, I think the only problem is that do you have trust in Nathaniel Hackett to build a offense around Lamar Jackson when we saw what he did or didn't do with Russell Wilson last year? Now, granted, you could talk about Russell Wilson and his skills declining, but Nathaniel Hackett did nothing to really help him last year in that situation too. So why not go to something that better than, something that you don't know in a season where, again, they got to make the playoffs. Like that's what it. They didn't, Woody Johnson did not give them a playoff mandate, but they have to make the playoffs, or everybody's fired. Everybody's gone probably.
It ain't
I want
us.
Lamar in the NFC. I want Lamar in the NFC. I don't even want him in the AFC.
Well, I think too. Like if they get rid of him, but the problem what you're finding is where's he gonna go? Like for me, I think it's like a handful of teams that would try to build an offense around him. Otherwise, I mean, the Falcons have said they're out on him. The Panthers want to draft a young quarterback. I already talked to people there. Like that's their preference. Even the Raiders are like, nah, we're good. Like they don't even want to do. They don't want to deal with it. So yeah,
and I hate that.
I hate it, but I hate it because I feel like, and I know that the word collusion has been thrown around a lot over the last couple of days now. I'll go as far as saying that, but I don't, even if you're not looking at it from that perspective. So just say there's no collusion. A smart owner, a smart GM, do you really feel like a smart GM who needs a quarterback will come out his mouth and say, no, we're not even interested in Lamar Jackson? Like, it just doesn't make sense to me.
Well, you just don't say anything.
Right.
You don't have to say anything. I mean, notice the Jets didn't say anything because it's still an option, potentially. I mean, they don't know what Aaron Rodgers is going to do. So, if he decides to return to Green Bay or retire, then that's probably their second option.
And I'm glad you brought up the whole collusion thing, because thou dost protest too much. The fact that you outright come out and say, we're not interested in Lamar Jackson, regardless if he's wanting a guaranteed contract, which I don't think he should get a guaranteed contract. But the fact that you don't put your hat in the ring, I don't know if that you're trying to save face because behind closed doors you're interested, or it just seems fishy. I mean, you'd rather take a 40-year-old quarterback and Aaron Rodgers. And I mean, Geno Smith got the bag this week. Derek Carr got the bag this week. And Lamar Jackson, in my opinion, is the best free agent quarterback on the market. And there's no market for him. That just seems a little odd to me.
I think part of it, too, is like teams don't want to do the dirty work for the Ravens. Like, simply because they could still match any offer that they present in front of their table. Like, they can sign an offer sheet, but the Ravens can be like, okay, yeah, we'll just match it. And then that be that. Whereas, it's been kind of a standstill between the two sides. And, Lamar, they're essentially telling Lamar, like, if you don't believe this is the best offer you can get from us, then go out and try to find it. And maybe he can't find it out where, but, I think that's kind of the issue too. Like, they've given him certain offers. Like, you hear certain things, but they've given him certain offers, but he doesn't want to take it, like, from what I understand.
Well, and I think basically, I don't want to misspeak on any teams or anything like that, but I think the part that starts to look like the collusion is there is when you have so many teams stacking, like saying, yep, we're not interested. We're not interested. Now, from the point you just made, it's a great point. I get it. If you're like, we're not about to do your dirty work, fine. But I feel like there should be some teams who realistically feel like, yo, we should be in the running for this dude. So for you to come off the bat, like these teams that need a quarterback, you mean to tell me y'all that impressed with it? I get it. Everybody's talking to me about the few quarterbacks in this year's draft and somebody coming out next year. I've been getting all these. I don't care what nobody say. Ain't nobody in this year's draft or next year's draft that I'm going to say, I'm going to take him over Lamar Jackson, and I'm okay with it. Like, there's just nobody. Now, there's somebody that I would draft and be like, all right, he's a good quarterback if I don't have a shot at Lamar Jackson. You mean to tell me a 26-year-old MVP, granted, he hasn't come out, he doesn't throw the ball like Patrick Mahomes. He doesn't throw the ball like Josh Allen. He's also been in a run-heavy offense. We've had that offense in Buffalo with Tyrod Taylor. We know what that offense is like. You put him with an offensive mind that actually can put – Lamar Jackson can throw the football. I don't understand why this is still even a conversation at times.
Right.
Lamar Jackson can throw the football. You put him in an offense that has to throw it, and it's going to look like a different thing. And I just don't know. I just don't get it, man.
It's like, again, you have to build an offense around him. Like, not necessarily like, yeah, he can throw it, but you want to build an offense that can also cater to his ability to run the football too. Right. Like the Eagles. Like, I think the Eagles, like, although, Jalen Hurts is there, but it's kind of similar type offense where they're throwing the ball down the field. They have weapons and things of that nature. They're asking him to do more than just running the football, as opposed to, I think, what Baltimore was asking him to do. Like, a lot of those offenses are very hard to find nowadays, to be quite honest with you. And you have to have an open-minded offensive coordinator that's willing to do that. How many of those are out there? Again, it's probably like a handful, if that. Like, I don't know. Like, maybe the Colts would be a, okay situation for him. But, again, would he want to go to the Colts? Would the Colts would rather just, start with a young guy?
Yeah, I don't know why they're making it as hard as they're making it seem. I mean, look, the Bills went and got Stephon Diggs. There are other teams that went out and got their signal caller quarterback. The Ravens failed to do so. I understand.
Wait. Hold on. I'm sorry. I don't even want to cut you off. They failed to do that, but they failed to do it because who wants to play wide receiver in a Greg Roman offense?
Correct.
Money talks. Money talks.
No, it don't
money
talk.
Talks,
no,
man.
it talks.
It's about legacy.
It's 100% about legacy. You don't want to be the wide receiver. Yeah, you made money. It's fun when people at the end of the day, man, I got the bread. You want to go down as one of the greatest wide receivers of all time.
Right.
You want to be paired with a Hall of Fame quarterback who can throw the ball and get you. There's a
but
reason why
we're not talking about like we got Tim Tebow here. We're talking about Lamar Jackson. Lamar Jackson can sling the rock.
It's not about Lamar. It's about Greg Roman being the play caller. Dude, you can have Josh Allen out there with Greg Roman, and he's not gonna look like what he's looked like.
They're gonna have that issue. That's a leadership
and that's issue. What I'm saying. So now he's out the way.
That's why they got
out
coordinator.
100%. He's out the way. So, and I'm sorry to cut you off there, but I'm saying like that's been the problem. And when you go, have you seen over the last week and a half all of these Ravens players come out and start questioning the leadership on that team?
Yeah.
Down from the GM all the way down to the offensive coordinator, down to the strength coach. I'm telling you, man, like money talks, but don't nobody want to play in that offense.
Yeah, they're a model organization, or they were, like, because but Greg Roman, like, I mean, from the top down, like they were a model, like a team that people wanted to go to, at least on the defensive side of the ball. Like, I feel like a lot of people kind of compared them to like the Steelers are. Like they had structure in the organization from the top down, whether Ozzie Newsome or Eric DaCosta, who's there now. Like they always had structure, and now you're seeing a little bit of rumblings there where I think you kind of saw some of that later on in the season when John Harbaugh was saying, I don't know when Lamar Jackson's coming back. So it's some hurt feelings there. It's some things personal there. Like, and I think part of that also, I hate to say it, he needs to hire an agent. Like, I think
he does.
Agent, like, can understand your role and like where you are, like as far as the market. Like, and without that, like, it's hard to tell what his market is. Like a real agent would sit down and tell you, like, look, this is what's out there. Like at the combine, because everybody talks about contracts and things like that at the combine, they would have sit down and told you, like, this is what's out there. Do you want to stay with Baltimore or do you want to go somewhere else? Like this is going to probably be the options. Without an agent like what he has, you don't necessarily know what's out there.
I hear all of that, and I agree with it. I'm agreeing with everything that's being said. The only thing that I disagree with was the fact about because it was Greg Roman. When we had him in Buffalo, we couldn't stand Greg Roman, and I know it came down on Tyrod. It was Tyrod, but it wasn't Tyrod. It was Greg Roman, bro. It was Greg Roman.
Part of that too is because the limitation that Tyrod had. I mean, Tyrod's a nice player, but he wasn't LeBron.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, and that's why I said, and that's what I'm saying. Like it was Tyrod, but it wasn't just Tyrod.
Right.
Like he got a lot of the blame, and then Greg Roman goes on to get another job with a great quarterback with a great organization, and then he does the same thing to that offense. So, but anyway, moving on. It's just crazy to me that this is Daniel Jones gets a bag. Sterling mentioned that Geno Smith gets a bag. I'm happy for Geno Smith, but
for sure,
I'm happy for Daniel Jones. I'm happy for everybody who's getting the bag. Like I feel like all these players, it's a dangerous game. It's a hard game. Get the bag. But what's crazy to me is the caliber of player who's not getting the bag.
Right.
Could you imagine if Joe Burrow next year don't get the bag? Like could you imagine if the Bengals was just like, no, we're not gonna give you the offer you want. Go ahead and see what you could do out there. Like, can you? So I don't want this to be confused that I'm taking up for Lamar like it's a black or white thing. This is not a black or I'm right. Making a point. Like, could you imagine? Like to me, Lamar Jackson is still a top. I might not put him top 5. He hasn't shown that he's a top 10 quarterback. And you mean to tell me a top 10 quarterback? It's just, and you have teams coming out. No, we good. What?
Immediate.
What did the Falcons?
I ain't never seen it.
Immediate.
What did the Falcons have this past season?
Marcus Mariota and Desmond Ridder.
You get what I'm saying? Like, really, y'all good on him? Y'all good? Heck no, man. But anyway, moving on.
It would have been Atlanta. I actually thought Atlanta because obviously Michael Vick in the phenomenon there. Like you probably put Lamar Jackson on there. Like he's the most popular quarterback since Vick was there. No disrespect to Matt Ryan, and he did some good things there. But we know the kind of the demographic that's in Atlanta, and then like what Lamar Jackson could bring to like down there in Georgia. So yeah, he would have been super popular down there.
It's beyond me. And like I said, this one, I promise everybody, I'm not making this a race. This is not a race conversation. He's a top player.
Yes.
He's a top player, and he's not, and I just don't understand. But see, the conversation has been disrespectful about him since he came out the draft. So,
correct.
Like he should be a wide receiver or he's a running back. Okay.
Exactly. Right. This dates back to when he's in Louisville. So, yeah, this is like yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So, let's move on. Antwan was in Indianapolis last week for the combine, and I wanted to actually bring up Sterling. So for those of you who are listening via podcast, if you're watching right now, Sterling loves this time of year. Like this is his thing, and he has this fantastic article that he wrote about the Buffalo Bills options in the draft this year. He has some, running backs, wide receivers, defensive linemen. And he goes through, and I'm sorry, I didn't mean to speed through that like that. But he goes through and he kind of explains, why they would be a good fit for the team. And, so I do want to get an opinion, some just a little bit of just share some of what you saw, who you were impressed with, and then we'll go around like the AFC East and talk about, what you feel each team needs to kind of focus on in order to make the next step. When after the draft.
Well, I mean, Zay Flowers with the Bills. I mean, now that'd be a home run because they definitely need another playmaker. And I've seen Zay. Like I remember when I was still living in Florida. Like he's from South Florida area. I mean, I was shocked that he ended up going to BC to begin with, just because I thought he was just that good. But man, like if the Bills can possibly get somebody like him to take some pressure off Stephon Diggs, I mean, that would be absolute home run. So yeah, for me, like just people I saw. I mean, obviously Anthony Richardson was pretty impressive there. I think a lot of people were questioning would he be a first round pick. I think he pretty much solidified that, like especially top 10. Yeah, people are talking about him going in the top 5 now. I think he's that good. Bryce Young, wanted to see how tall he was, how big he was. He weighed over 200 pounds. I think he's probably going to be the first quarterback taken. Probably somebody's team is going to trade up to number 1. I think the Panthers are possibly a potential option there for Bryce Young too as well. I think Bijan Robinson also, I think, I wouldn't be surprised if the Eagles took him at number 10. I think he's that good. And, depending on what happens with Miles Sanders, they definitely could use a running back there. I don't know if Miles is going to come back too. But those were some of the players that I was impressed with in the draft. I mean, just the combine. And, Paris Johnson Jr., I think he's definitely a guy that I would look at too. I know Sterles, mentioned Jones, who out of Ohio State, who I loved. I saw him at the Senior Bowl. Like, I mean, he is just a man amongst boys. He kind of remind me a little bit of Mekhi Becton, a bit better shape too. Like you can't get through him. I mean, the only way you can get through him is like you use your speed. But, as far as the power, offensive lineman, like you're not moving, like he's like a brick wall. So, I mean, if the Bills could possibly get him, I think he'll be a 2nd round pick. So, I mean, he's there in the 2nd round and, Buffalo's there. I mean, that would be definitely a home run for them too as well.
Go ahead, Sterles. I know this is your thing. I'm stepping back.
No, man. When you talk about the Bills, man, there's so many players that they should be looking at. They could be looking at. There's been rumblings this week that tight end could be on the table. I don't see it, but I think a player that teams or as fans we should be really looking at is a guy like Trenton Simpson out of Clemson. He is a very versatile defender. He could rush the passer. He could do all the A-gap stuff that Tremaine Edmunds does. He's not as dynamic in pass coverage as Tremaine is, but he can do it. He could do it. I mean, this guy even plays snaps at safety with Clemson. So, I know, it's not the sexy pick, but it does appear that the Bills do value those linebackers. And this is a guy that, if he's not on your radar, I believe that Trenton Simpson should be on your radar because he's that good. I would love for the Bills to go wide receiver. I've been hammering the table for the Bills to go offense, for the past few years, and it just doesn't seem to happen. And I mean, you can only put so many assets in that defense. And I know, just like if you don't have a quarterback, keep drafting quarterback. But I feel like, man, the Bills are at a critical point, in their growth period where you need to start getting Josh Allen some long-term options at cheap costs. And you're gonna have to. I mean, let's look at it. If you look at the free agent wide receiver class, there ain't nothing there. And why is that? Because teams are holding on to the wide receivers, or when they trade them, they're getting big-time assets. So why wouldn't you just draft one or two? Coming up in this draft, the guy in the second, third round, Marvin Mims is a solid option. I like Josh Downs out of North Carolina is a solid option, and go get somebody with some upside, maybe in the later rounds, with some height, weight, speed guys. So there's options for the Bills to go get a wide receiver. I just hope that they don't waste any time and stop being cute and just go get the guy they want.
Yeah, Nathaniel Dale is another guy who I really like out of Houston. Like, I think he's like probably a third, fourth round pick there if you wanted to, look at wide receiver later on. Another guy like I wanted to bring attention, like Brian Branch from Alabama. I think he's the Jets are also kind of looking for safety help too. I know I spoke with one of the Bills writers and he was like, man, like I don't think Branch is gonna make it, but he'd be a perfect fit for the Bills. And yeah, I kind of agree too. Like, I mean, he's played a number of different positions. He kind of reminds me of Minka Fitzpatrick, like what he was at Alabama and what he is in the league, where he can play in the slot. He can also play, as a free safety too as well. But yeah, I think Brian Branch is also somebody that can impress me too as well in the combine.
Yeah, Jack Campbell is the guy that people are talking about in the chat. He's not small. I think Jack Campbell's like 6'3", 6'4". He's not the athlete that Tremaine is, but what he brings to the table is that he can fill gaps. I think he can go sideline to sideline, and he's one of those guys that when you watch him, he looks old school, but he's always around the football. Like his instincts and tracking the ball, they're elite. And why wouldn't you want that out of a linebacker? I mean, I think Jack Campbell will be a steal in the third round. So, Dalen Henry is a guy that from Washington State that the Bills should be looking at for linebacker. And you mentioned the safeties. There's some good safeties. Jair Brown from Penn State. I mean, there's guys that that could be had later in the round. So it just I in these meetings. Right, I want to be a fly on the wall and kind of hear what Brandon Beane and these guys are talking about. I hate watching the draft and you just see picks like Terrell Bernard in the third round and you scratch your head and then you see them not really use him, and I just don't understand it. So I really hope that Brandon Beane has a draft for the fans. Like, go get people that they're going to come in and contribute right away.
Yeah, I know in the chat they mentioned like Washington from Georgia. I mean, I don't know if I know obviously I don't see the Bills taking a tight end either because with Knox and the money that they're committing to him. But if you wanted to do something out of spite, because I think the Dolphins might take him, I think he'd be a really good fit there. That's kind of what they do, and they're going to move on from Mike Gesicki simply because like he doesn't necessarily fit their scheme. That would be a player that you end up taking who I think Washington's going to be a home run hitter no matter where he is because he can block, he can pass protect, and also he can catch passes too. So I think he's your all around tight end.
I like him. I just don't think the Bills know how to utilize guys like that in their offense. Josh Allen, we know Josh Allen likes to throw to wide receivers. Now, I know if you get a guy like him, what does that mean for Dawson Knox? How much 12 personnel are you actually going to run? I just don't know. But the Bills do have a track record with their offensive coordinator, some of their offensive coaching staff, where they've used 12 personnel in the past with the Panthers. So that doesn't mean that they're able to do it. And Josh Allen's a much better thrower of the football than Cam Newton. But Darnell Washington is a intriguing prospect. I just don't really see the style that offense the Bills play. I just don't really see a fit.
Last night on Recorded Conduct, I said, for me, it's offensive lineman, wide receiver are my equal needs for the Buffalo Bills in the draft to address. But if you can double dip like we did that one year with the defensive lineman when we got Boogie and when we got Group, if there's two good wide receivers at the top of the draft, double dip. You know what I mean? Like if there's two great offensive, I think that's a little different based on where we're drafting. I don't think we're going to get the value. Maybe, I don't know. But if there's two great wide receivers, man, Brandon Beane, stop playing these games.
Preach.
Stop playing these games, man. Like
best available player. Take the best of if he's a wide receiver, then take him.
I mean, best available player, yeah,
it.
but at the same time, I feel like if a best available player at that point is a cornerback, I don't want them to draft a cornerback. I just don't. You know what I mean? Like
you
because
always
we need no.
You always can use cornerback.
I feel you, and I get that. But what I'm saying is, what we need is a wide receiver. We need an offensive lineman, and I understand why people say you draft the best player available. I get the philosophy. I get why that's always the best thing to do. But I'm telling you, the greatest holes that this team has is after Stephon Diggs and all across that offensive line after Deion Dawkins. Like we have to. And you draft a cornerback, and then you wait till the 6th round again to draft a wide receiver, and then we're wondering why we have wide receivers not playing half the season because the team doesn't quite trust them. We drafted Khalil Shakir last year, who after the draft they ranted and raved about Shakir. They raved about him. He barely played, and then they started to play him a little bit there at the end. Get me a guy. Like, go and get me a guy. I also last night I mentioned. Look at what the Bengals did. The Bengals drafted Jamar Chase. They drafted T. Higgins. Like,
Tyler Boyd,
you can do it. You can do this. Like, stop doing this thing where it's like you try to put a makeshift wide receiver core together because you think Josh Allen is that great. He is that great. But the thing is, you have to get him great receivers too. I don't care how great Josh is. You put me on that field, and guess what? I probably have 85% drop rate, and the 15% catches I got is on screens that I'm wide open. Other than that, so you need elite guys, man. Get elite guys.
Okay, forgive me. Like, I don't necessarily know the Bills cap situation off the top of my head, but there is a wide receiver that's possibly on the market. And, DeAndre Hopkins, like I'd probably have to work out, contract or whatever like that. But could that be an option too?
Ooh, that's tough. I think anytime there's a good player, out there, I think, he's a candidate for Brandon Beane to take a look at. I pass because I want the Bills to go get guys that could be here long term. Like Stephon Diggs is no spring chicken. DeAndre Hopkins is 30. Like I want them to have guys that they can groom and that they're cost effective for the next 4 to 5 years, and that you can turn around and re-sign them. I mean, that because of Josh Allen's contract, because of contract of Von Miller, I think you're going to lose the flexibility to go out and kind of be cute with some of this stuff. So I think, it really does boil down to how well they can draft and develop.
And it's going to come down to if they're willing to part with some of these guys that they've invested in for so long. You have the conversation, and there's a couple conversations that can be had, especially next season. But right now, do you really want to continue to invest in Ed Oliver, who's been good, but not what you thought at 9? Do you want to try to trade him away and see if you can get something back? Do you want to? I'm not going to go down the list, but there are questions and there's conversations to be had. But for me, honestly, like I said, I'm not even just trying to argue because I agree with what you're saying. I understand to draft the best player available. I'm with you. But I guess as a Bills fan, I've been on that for the last 5 years now. And it seems like they don't know who the best player available is because they drafted Cody Ford instead of DK Metcalf in the 2nd round. So for me, it's like, okay, scrap that. Like, forget that. Get the dude that right there is a beast that you need. Go get him. So, like, that's just where I'm at.
Well, if you're going to do that, like, they need to, if they like Zay Flowers, they're probably going to jump in front of the Giants in order to do it because I know the Giants definitely need some wide receiver help. And, whether it be a tight end or a wide receiver, they got to get Daniel Jones. And, whether you keep Saquon there, which seems like they'll at least keep him for a year, they got to get him some more weapons there. So if you really like them, then, there's nothing wrong with trading up to go get somebody that you're really, passionate about.
What do you think about the Jets now? Like, I know we talked a little bit about Aaron Rodgers and what they might do at quarterback. And I'm sure there's other moves to be made in free agency as well. But going into the draft for the Jets, what do you think is the outlook? Obviously, best player available, but what do you see as needs?
Offensive line, definitely. They need a center. Like Connor McGovern is, free agent. They have some questions at tackle too because I mean, Dwayne Brown may come back, but he'll be 38, at the start of next year. So, and I know a lot of people, Jets fans, are happy about Mekhi Becton and losing all this weight, and but the man ain't played in 2 years, so you really can't necessarily depend on him. And I imagine they declined his 5th-year option because they have to make a decision on it by May 2nd. So, having said that, I think tackle, whether it be left tackle or right tackle, both really are really a priority. And safety, I think safety is also a big need too as well. But they also add a linebacker too as well. I mean, they're pretty set at their edge rush position. I would add a running back at some point. It doesn't have to be the 1st or 2nd round, because as much as I like Breece Hall, you don't know necessarily how he's going to come back from an ACL tear, especially considering suffered in October. So you don't want to necessarily put a lot of pressure on him to carry the full load, because let's be real, the Jets offense was not the same, after he went down. Like, they only won 1 game the rest of the year after that win against Denver.
Wow. Okay. Steros, do you have any, anybody that you could see the Jets utilizing in the draft? 1st, 2nd round?
Man, if I'm the Jets, I'm looking at quarterback, to be honest. I would go get Anthony Richardson, or I'd take a shot at Will Levis. I think if you don't have a quarterback, your roster's incomplete.
I mean, facts. You're right. If I'm the Jets, I'm taking this year's 1st and next year's 1st and going to get Lamar Jackson.
Lamar Jackson. Yeah, if
you can't.
Go ahead.
You can't let this regime draft another quarterback, though, because
you can.
Hot seat. They're on the hot seat. Like, they cannot afford to wait on a guy that could possibly take a year or 2 to develop. They'll be fired. Like, you can't take Anthony. I love Anthony Richardson. I think he's going to be tremendous, but it's going to take him more than 1 year to be, to show you signs that he's going to be a starting quarterback in this league. That's how I feel. Like, you need somebody that's going to help you immediately. And I don't know.
That makes sense.
Yeah. Here's why I say that, just because, the Jets have a running game that they can hang their hat on, and that they got a strong defense, right? And so if you go out and you get one of these young quarterbacks, that's how you're going to develop, is playing the damn game. You know what I'm saying? Like, put them out there, make sure you have the right infrastructure, make sure you can get him protecting the offensive line, but let him do his thing, man. I mean, I think, gone are the days where a guy needs to sit for a year or 2 years for him to develop, and then put him in the game and then have another year of development as he's been developing for the past 2 years. I think, it's instant gratification league now. You go draft these guys, you're expecting them to come in and contribute something. And so if you can't get, the most out of him, then you need to find the offensive coordinator, or you need to look back at your structure to figure out how you're going to get the most out of these guys.
I mean, you're right.
The way I think about it.
But let me ask you this. If it was you, if you were the head coach of the New York Jets right now, and like Twan said, they didn't tell him he's on the hot seat. Like, that's not what's out in the media. We don't know, it's not like a playoff mandate, right? But it's the seat's warm and it's gonna get hot. And the thing is, do you want to put your career? You want to put your career in the hands of a guy that's going to be unproven coming into the NFL, or do you want to find somebody that like, okay, at the very least, I'll get somebody that I know is going to give me 10 wins.
Okay, I'll answer that real quick. So if I'm the Jets, I think you got to look at the plurality.
Wait. I'm sorry. Not because I want you to answer the question correctly. Not the Jets. If you're the head coach of the Jets.
Right. So if I'm Robert Saleh,
okay.
Like, the Jets have been terrible for years. I think this is the first time where they've actually been a competitive football team. That's a step in a positive direction. I can't speak to the culture, but man, they've went out, and him and Joe Douglas have went out and gotten pillars, that long-term pillars for that organization. So I think you ride the hot hand. I think, with their drafting and personnel, I think you continue to try to find that quarterback. And you know what? And if it doesn't work, if they fire me, then guess what? Look, I can look back at my team with the Jets and be like, yo, I did everything I could, but I really believe in, if you don't have the quarterback in place, then your roster is incomplete. And I'm going to stand on that.
Perception is reality. Like, if the Jets had finished 7-10 without them finishing 7-4 at one time, then I think the conversation might be different, where they might have that coaching staff might have another year, like possibly after 2023. But the fact remains, like, they had an opportunity to make the playoffs, and they all sit straight like that. We tried to talk to Woody Johnson, the owner, after the Dolphins game. He ran out, like he didn't want.
He didn't want to hear it, huh?
Like, we didn't want smoke.
We thought Salah might be fired then. So just imagine them not making the playoff. And by the way, the Jets are about to be the longest tenure team in North America sports, and as far as playoff droughts. Like teams are going to make the playoffs this year in the NBA. Like, you think Woody Johnson wants to read that on the headlines on every single article that the Jets are the team that has the longest playoff drought in North American sports? No. But that's about to be a reality.
Can't relate. No, I'm joking. But we all know the Bills.
It ain't me, dog.
Can't relate. We had that 17-year drought, man. It was the best. I know. I get it how we got in there, but man, I'm gonna tell you, when that thing happened and the Buffalo Bills made the playoffs after the Ravens ended up taking that L, man.
Like, yeah, I was there. That was like a big party for the Bills. Like, and the Dolphins had to sit there and listen to the Bills celebrating the opposite locker room, which you could hear. Like, jumping up and down. Like, yeah, it was. Yeah, you hate your rivals making the playoffs in front of you. So that was a bitter pill for them to swallow.
Hey, so I mean, I'm just saying, if because it's a division rival, I'm just saying I would like for the Jets to end up having to fire their coach this year, But I do like him, so I don't know. I think he's a good coach. I think he's smart. I think they're building a good thing there. But man, I would love for them to try to do what Sterling say and then like strike out and they just extend that playoff drought, man. Like, I would love it. I would love it.
They know what it is. Like, they fully know, they fully understand that. They know they got to make the playoffs. They know, like, so yeah, that's why they're hitting, trying to go for the home run with Aaron Rodgers. That's exactly why they flew out there.
So, well, speaking about the team that the Buffalo Bills beat that Sunday, that we ended up breaking the playoff drought. How do you guys see Miami? We'll start with Strohs on this one. What do you see Miami doing in the draft? What are they paying attention to?
Well, seeing that they don't have a first round pick, I think they got some holes on the offensive line they need to fill. They need help at linebacker as well. And now, because Byron Jones isn't coming back, you really have to look at cornerback. But the problem is, when you get I think they got a second round pick. They don't have that first round pick, so it's going to be tough for them to really fill out this roster. They too are over the cap, but not by much. So they can make some moves, just like the Bills, to free up some cap space. The cool thing that Miami has going for them is that it's a destination place that people want to go play for them. I think the report that came out that you showed me, Spence, that the Dolphins, they look pretty good in terms of what the players felt about the organization and their structure. So they got to go. Look, they got to fix that offensive line just out of respect for Tua alone. If that's the only reason you do it, you got to do it. So offensive line, linebacker, cornerback is and running back too is where they need to be looking.
Yeah, you're talking about the NFL Players Association poll. Well, yeah, they finished second. Yeah, the Vikings finished first, and then the Raiders finished third too in that poll. But yeah, I was going to hit on running back. They don't have any running backs signed to the roster right now, so they gotta address that. I mean, that's the best way, especially when you talk about they run the same system as San Francisco. Like, the 49ers love to run the football, have a really good offense, and like to be physical. So the Dolphins, if they're in the same mold of that with Mike McDaniel, they need a top line running back. Obviously, they don't have a first round pick, so they can't get Bijan Robinson unless they trade up. But a guy like Tajay Spears from Tulane, I definitely think will be a really good pick for them, especially considering he's a bit of a home run hitter, and I think he'd be a great, tremendous fit in that offense. And then definitely offensive line too. The offensive line has definitely been a need for the Dolphins for the last decade plus, but they failed to solve it, to be quite honest with you.
In the comments here, Sarah and Daryl both are saying that they think Miami's going to take a chance and try to see if they can get Jalen Ramsey, who's a free agent. What do you all think about that being a possibility?
I mean, they do need cornerback help, though. I mean, the problem is like they're not necessarily in the best cap situation either. And then now you already got to pay Tyreek Hill, and you're gonna have to make some moves as far as you're paying Xavier Howard, and depending on what happens with Tua next year, if he balls out, then you may have to pay him too. So I mean, they could potentially be in a bad cap situation too.
It's so funny every time I talk to a Dolphins fan, though, because they think, especially now with everything that's kind of happening with the Bills, they think they're going to get Tremaine. They think they're going to get Jordan. They think they're going to sign Ramsey. Like, they think they're going to get everybody. And I'm just like, okay, just watch. Y'all traded for
Jordan if they wanted to, but do you want to shell out like a ton of money for like a safety that's, over the age of 30? I don't necessarily know if you.
It depends on the length of the contract. Yeah, but no, I'm with you because I mean it just depends on the length of the contract and what they're trying to do. Here's my thing. I know a lot of people feel like Miami was there, and then at the end it kind of with Tua's injury and everything that kind of unraveled for them. But I just don't see them as much of a because of Tua, because of his injuries and stuff. I just don't see him as a team that I'm really gonna be worried about in the grand scheme of things, because can you keep your quarterback healthy? And for me, with a guy like Jordan, I think he's in this position where it's like he's not. I spoke to him. He's not chasing. He's not like at this point, like, well, you know what? I ain't win a championship. I'm gonna go into the best team possible and try to. That's not what he's doing. But at the same time, I'm saying this. I don't think he wants to go and play for the Texans. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
It's not a. I think he wants to. He wants to win. So, me personally, he hasn't told me this, but me personally, I could see Jacksonville being a team that would be really impressive if they got Jordan. I could see, but back to this division.
Let's down there in Miami in the offseason. So yeah, I mean, obviously a fit there. So yeah, Jacksonville I could see too, especially a young team.
And they got the offense. I mean, they made the playoffs. They just got Calvin Ridley back, or not back. He'll be joining them now. But I don't know. But let's talk a little bit about the Patriots before we got to get out of here. We got about 15 minutes left. I was talking to somebody over the weekend. I'm trying to remember who it was. I was talking to them, and they seem to think that Mac is the dude. I'm not saying that I think the Patriots need to draft a quarterback this year. Before we talk about the combine and the guys that the Patriots should look at this year, are y'all convinced about Mac Jones?
Yeah, I'm not. I feel like you need guys at the quarterback position that are athletic, can make plays off schedule. I mean, that's what the NFL, that's what's successful now in this league. And Mac Jones is not that. But I do have some sympathy for Mac Jones because they haven't put the necessary components around him to be successful, so I do give him a pass on that, but I still feel like he is a, bottom third starter in the NFL. I think he'll end up being a career backup to me. So I feel like the Patriots definitely need to go get some reinforcements at quarterback.
I think he's an average quarterback. I mean, I think you kind of saw like some good Matt Jones like his rookie year. I mean, the Patriots ended up making the playoffs. I mean, I think he had a little bit to do with that, but also, the lack of continuity. I mean, you had Matt Patricia and Joe Judge calling plays.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So, I mean, God's sake, last year, to bring Bill O'Brien in there, to bring some stability there, the offensive coordinator position, something that they desperately needed last year. I mean, I think you can maximize the talent, there, and especially Bill O'Brien being at Alabama for a little bit too. So, he'll have an understanding to kind of, the system that the Crimson Tide runs. Also, what makes Mac Jones a little bit more comfortable. And I think, you'll maximize the talent, out of him. Is he going to be, this top 10 quarterback? No. But I think we already knew that anyway, him coming out of the draft. But I think you bake the playoffs with him. I think you can be successful. And in the way the Patriots run their scheme, they're going to be good defensively. We already know what New England's going to be. They're going to be good defensively. They're going to have a sound offensive line. They're going to be well coached there. It's just a matter of, can they get enough offensively to make the playoffs? And I think they can there. I think they're very similar structure as the Jets. It's just that they don't necessarily have, the young pieces there that the Jets have. So I think that's the big difference with them.
They got a good running game. I love their run game.
They do.
And they spent a lot of money on tight ends. Now I don't know if their tight ends will show up, but if their tight ends play up to their contracts, I mean, if they get it.
They need to take Michael Mayer from Notre Dame. Like, I think he'd be a tremendous pick for that's a typical Patriots pick because he reminds me. I want to put I hate comparisons, but as far as like Rob Gronkowski, like a little bit, like he kind of reminds me a little bit of him, like just the way that he can block, he can catch the ball out the backfield. I mean, he's a game breaker. So I think if 14 New England, that's for me. I think that's exactly what they're gonna do.
Yeah. Let me ask you this: my man Roy Collins in the comments said Mac Jones or Daniel Jones. Who would you take?
Oh, I'm making Mac Jones. I'm taking Mac Jones. Like Daniel Jones to me, like I think Brian Daboll got the most he can out of him. Like that's how
15 touchdowns. He got 15 touchdowns out of it.
Ooh, that's tough, man. I probably go Daniel Jones because he gives you an added element of athleticism and to be able to run the ball and extend plays. That's who I go with, actually. Danny Dimes.
And see, now I'm gonna actually go with Swan on this one. I feel like you give New England, say you give New England an offensive mind like Brian Daboll. Now, Mac is not a runner of the football. He can't do the stuff Daniel Jones couldn't do the stuff Josh could do. But we saw a huge improvement in Daniel Jones, and it was still only 15 touchdowns to 5 interceptions or something like that. You give Mac Jones an offensive mind like that that's creative. They bring in some weapons. They draft a receiver or two. They have Ramondre Stevenson, who I think is – I love Ramondre Stevenson. I hate Patriots, but I love Ramondre Stevenson. And I think he's solid, man. So – I don't know. I would go Mac Jones, but I agree with your assessment of him earlier. Like, I don't think he's going to be anything super special, but that's an interesting question because we both, I think everybody agrees, like,
yeah,
is Mac going to be the long-term guy? Is he going to get a Josh Allen deal? Is he going to get but Daniel Jones just got the bag. Like, you know what I mean? He just got a very good contract, but I would take Mac Jones over him.
You know why? And I'll add to this too. Is like, I'm a fan of what Brian Daboll has done for Danny Dimes. Like, I feel like they've really did. I think they really did something to Mac Jones' psyche. I can't speak on that in terms of like I know what's going on, but man, just from the outside looking in, the way they handled the quarterback situation, man, if I'm Mac Jones, I'm like, yo, I want to be somewhere where I'm wanted. You know what I'm saying? Like where I'm in a situation like what you guys say, where they're going to give me weapons, they're going to give me infrastructure that I can lean on and so forth. Look at what Daniel Jones did with Brian Daboll with no receiving help, right? I mean, he was throwing his number one receiver was Isaiah Hodgins down the stretch. I think he played considerably well. Brian Daboll got the most talent out of him, and this is a guy that was drafted pretty early, and he has upside as a quarterback. I just think where you get drafted matters, and the infrastructure you have in place, all that matters. So Mac Jones may be a product of just being in a defensive led offense, right? With Brian, Bill Belichick. God, yeah. I can't stand that dude. But I would love for Mac Jones to be successful just somewhere else.
I don't think either one of these guys are like it, but fact of the matter is, it's kind of what Spence said. Like, you have a guy like Brian Daboll I think he got the absolute most like out of Daniel Jones, and nobody else was able to do that. I mean, and by the way, I mean, Daniel Jones' last coach was also, Matt Jones' offensive coordinator essentially last year, and we kind of saw how that went down with New York.
Yeah. So, okay, it's gonna be fun. I'm excited about the draft. I'm excited about free agency. Any before we get on out of here, any inclination on anybody? Do you know where anybody's like you feel like, hey, this is just a good fit? This is where it's gonna happen. Or is there anywhere that you would like certain players to go? I know we talked about Lamar Jackson. Personally, I would like to see him go to Detroit if he does leave Baltimore. I think him in Detroit would be fun. I know they have Goff. I know it's like and Goff did good last year, so I'm not taking anything away from him, but you put Lamar Jackson with those type of receivers, that type of offensive line and a defense. I think they're a tough team, and I think they're on the upswing. And I think the Lions are going to make some noise soon, especially with Aaron. Well, Rodgers didn't make the playoffs anyway because of the Lions at the end of the season. But I think, it's no longer just Green Bay's division. And I don't think the Bears have taken the stranglehold. So I would love to see Lamar Jackson go somewhere like Detroit. I also, speaking of Detroit, I also very sad, feel this in my heart. I think that Tremaine Edmunds is probably going to end up there too. I could see a really good fit for Tremaine Edmunds with Detroit. I don't want it. I want the Bills to figure it out. Adam Schefter said this morning on ESPN that he expects the Buffalo Bills to lose both Jordan Poyer and Tremaine Edmunds. I hate hearing that we're going to lose Tremaine Edmunds. I've been saying it for a while, though. I do think he's gone. But, I think Detroit would be a good fit.
Yeah, I agree. It's just so frustrating, man. Like, I really don't agree with how maybe some of the personnel decisions have been made with the Bills. I mean, if you sit there and you call Tremaine Edmunds a quarterback or a defense, and you re-up Josh Allen, which bona fide, superstar, etc., Tremaine Edmunds just had the best season of his career. Like, you should have locked him up long term before you locked up Dawson Knox, to be honest. But I get it. It's a business and you can't keep everybody. But I mean, you don't come around guys like Tremaine Edmunds very often with that upside, the intangibles, the range. I mean, he is a complete package and some for the linebacker position. And letting him walk out the door is sinister, if you ask me.
Yeah, I think if you talk about, we talked about Lamar Jackson, but him going to the Commanders, I think that would be a really good fit too. I mean, they're really sound defensively, and they got some weapons too. They got a running back, they got Terry McLaurin too as well. They're trying to build that offensive line. I think that'd be a really good. And then obviously Eric Bieniemy is there, the offensive coordinator. Like, I would love to see that as a fit there. I don't know if it would happen. Obviously, they said they're out on Lamar, but you kind of hope that, maybe they come to their senses and possibly, change their mind. But I think that would be a tremendous fit for the Commanders.
No, I agree. I would love to see Eric Bieniemy do something with Lamar. Like, all of these people have been doubting Eric Bieniemy as the offensive mind. It's not his offense anyway. He's not calling the plays. Let's see. And you put him with somebody like Lamar Jackson, I would love it. They got receivers, they got a run game, they got a good. I would love it. I would love it. So, and like I said, get him the hell out the AFC. Get him gone out the AFC. I don't want no parts of Lamar Jackson, man. So, well, let's go ahead and get on out of here. Strohs, I just mentioned your article, but do you have anything else coming up or anything that you want to highlight before we get on out?
Yeah, I'm working on my mock draft 1.0. I'll submit it this weekend. So hopefully early next week, you'll be able to see what my first mock draft is. This will be the first of 3 mock drafts that I'll be doing in the offseason for the Buffalo Bills.
Real quick, before I ask Twan this, Roy always got to mess with me, and he know it's going to mess with me. Roy knows. He said, honestly, though, the Bills can win games without Edmunds. Beef up the offense. Bruh, did you see the Buffalo Bills on defense the week that Tremaine Edmunds got injured in the second quarter? Do you remember what the defense looked like when Tremaine Edmunds was not in there? And I know we praise Matt Milano. I love Matt Milano. This is not a shot at Matt Milano. The reason why Matt Milano is so good is because he and Tremaine Edmunds together as a tandem are awesome. Did you see how the Bills looked on defense without the quarterback of their defense? Get on out of here with that talk, man. Where my sign? Tremaine, I love you, dog. I love you, dog. Come back, man. Don't listen to these fans. Don't listen to these fans. Come back. Twine, you got anything that you want to talk about, highlight real quick before we get on out of here?
Well, I'm just on Aaron Rodgers watch all week. So yeah, you just check there. So.
And just fans be on your head. Just fans be on your head.
Yeah.
He tweeted something about basketball. He tweeted
about basketball. Oh yeah, it's not Aaron Rodgers. I'm like, come on, man, really? Like, but yeah, you check out Antwan Daily on Twitter, New York Daily.
All right. Well, like I said, and I say it every week. Y'all know how we do over here with Buffalo Rumblers. Y'all take care of each other. Y'all love each other and live in peace. And as always, y'all stay positive and test negative. Go Bills.
Go Bills.